Hello guys and welcome to the Art of It. In today's video I'm showing you my process and techniques for watercolor painting, and what I'm using is of course my coffee is there, a set of brush. This watercolor pad is quite good, it's a 300 gram, and I start to learn the heavy weight paper. It's amazing for watercolor. I really changed the result. I have a water jar. Also I have my Miya watercolor paint, which are both of them like cheap and affordable item that I'm going to list down below. I have my swatch card that I find super useful for watercolor and my subject. I also put a sheet of scrap paper on the back of my watercolor sheet because I want to protect the papers underneath. So at the moment I am keeping this view for you guys to show you my subject and what I'm seeing, and maybe you want to take a screenshot and then later on maybe do your own painting because it's fall and is amazing. There are amazing pumpkins out there and I love to paint them whenever I can. So the first technique that I use is to just sketch straight with my number 5 pointy brush, and I'm do a very loose sketch. Now if you're not comfortable to go straight with the paint, of course you can do a pencil sketch first and then go with your watercolor paint and cover it up, but I'm trying to have an realistic but very loose and abstract paint, so you see what it is but there is still some of yourself into the painting, so it's good to always modify a little bit. And now as you see I just a little bit dimension, and I don't mind that there are double lines because it's watercolor. It's one of the most forgiving paint out there that you can use, so it's good to adjust things and then fix it later on, and I will show you how I'm fixing this paint. Now if you want, it's a good time to take a screenshot. This is because I'm changing the view so you can see what I'm doing. Another technique is to add water, plain water, to the areas that I want to fill with color. Especially if you want to do a loose paint, this is amazing to just let the color spread. If there is water underneath, the color will follow the water, so it makes the dainty shape and the texture very interesting. So I'm first laying down like a base color, the base color that I want to have, and I still want to come through a little bit, and in this case is a yellow. But then I'm going to add a lot of spot until the water is still up there and is fresh and is running around. I'm also here fixing slightly the edges by passing with the wet brush. Is watercolor, so the water will reactivate your paint, so whenever you want to fix it just add some water. If you don't want any extra color around, just use a wet brush with no color. And I start to add some splash of color that, because my paper is still wet, it will navigate around and create those interesting texture that I was talking about. And I'm going from the lighter gradient of color to a darker one. I'm using the darker more in the area where the edges of the pumpkins are, the slice of the pumpkins are. So I did a yellow, a darker yellow, a light orange, and lighter reddish orange color. Now for the second pumpkin, instead of wetting the paper first, I'm just going with the wet yellow color, and this is like my water. But instead of just plain water, I use watery color. So it's kind of the same, up to you what you like to use. And then I went around to add my color, in this case gradient of green, that are going to create this different texture. And I also mix a green with blue to create a even darker and more interesting color. So the color mixing there create in a beautiful texture. Some area were a bit more dry, so I add water on top of the color, and this works as well. And yes, I smudge. It happens a lot because I am clumsy that way, but the way I'm fixing it is to have a clean brush with a bit of water, and I'm pushing the paint toward my painting. In this way it will like mix with the painting itself, and I keep cleaning the brush to make sure I do not grab color from the smudge area and spread it around. So clean the brushes, wet slightly the brush, and keep pushing the color inside, and as you can see, it's quite good result. But we will keep modifying. What I'm doing now is creating a very thin edge, because when I did my sketch, the edges were quite big. So I'm now using this pointy brush, is a 8-1 number 8 pointy brush, but I pushed the color out toward the outside of the line to create as thin of an edge as I like to be. But then of course I grab the color, so I have to make sure that my brush is nice and clean between works. So I do an edge or a half of an edge, and then I clean my brush, and then I don't even wet the brush because there is the color there. If I struggle to reactivate the color, then I may add a little bit of water. But what I'm doing is just pushing the color to the side so I can create a nice thin edge. And I like that one, and I do this quite a bit in my painting. Apologize for the background noise, but we have a worker just outside the window. They're building a new block, so if I wait for them to finish, I have to wait a couple of years more. So I'm so sorry for the background noise, but yeah, this happened. What I do now is using a number 2 pointy brush to have just a very fine line that indicate the edge of a slice of the pumpkin, let's call it like that, and the parts that come as a bit double, I will use the same technique of the edges to clean it up and thin it down. I'm now adding some base color to the center of the pumpkin, and while they're dry, I'm adding some spot of dust and dirt that you can see on the pumpkin. And I also use the same color to add a little bit more texture to the center of the pumpkin, but I also add not just the black, also some green and some darker brown, so I can create more texture, variation of color. The second center is more line, and so I work a bit more with line. And then I add a little lines also all around to create that visual movement. And it's time for the shades. I'm adding shades using a gray that I watered down quite a bit, but then I realized that there is like a gradient of shading, so I'm adding a darker shades and a lighter shades in the end. And then I'm adding also shading area on the inside of the pumpkin. These are especially around the center, but also a little bit on the left side. So I'm adding shades wherever I see them, wherever I think I need them. And this is the end of the painting. I really hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know what you think in the comment below. If you love to paint pumpkins as well, you may consider subscribe or just like this video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.